And we're getting into it this morning. The governor of the county of Murang'a joins us this morning. Irungu Kang'ata is here with us. Good morning, Governor.
I'm fine.
You're fine?
Yes.
It's the 1st of September.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
My gift to you is a new month.
Yeah.
As you're here this morning and getting into it, thank you for being part of the Situation Room this morning. Welcome.
Thank you
Have
so
you been
much.
in Nairobi or did you come from the county this morning?
I live in Nairobi, so okay. I came from Nairobi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Karibu sana.
Yes.
We're going to start off this conversation with today's proverb. Dennis will tell you where we are, and we'd love your interpretation of it.
So we are in the country of home of champions, that is Morocco. It's a country that is famous for its mint tea known as Atay, or the locals call it the Moroccan whiskey. Right now, couscous is the national dish, usually served on Fridays, and spices like saffron, cumin, cinnamon, and paprika are central to Moroccan cooking. But let's go to the proverb today. He who doesn't have honey says it's bitter. He who doesn't have honey says it's bitter. How would you interpret that?
Whoever is not in a position of privilege definitely will try to delegitimize that other person who is in privilege. Yeah.
Right?
Beautiful way of looking at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Delegitimize. Yeah, oftentimes you do that just without even knowing the thing, isn't it? Well, great to get into it. Governor, your county oftentimes is touted as the one that is leading from the front and leading by example in terms of the things that you've been able to do. We've just come off of the Devolution conference, whereby devolution was given a second look. And then thereafter, we celebrated Katiba Day, whereby a number of things in the Constitution then being celebrated and remembered, and one of them is devolution. So 15 years of Katiba, a new one, and within that 14 years of, devolution. Just from your point of view, having been a senator before that, and then coming into the governorship, how have things changed, or how have things gotten better, if they have, from your point of view?
One, what we call a representation. Previously, we had a centralized form of government where quite a number of Kenyans, particularly the marginalized groups, they felt that they are not fully represented at the center. But now with devolution, every community has an opportunity to own a certain government. For example, you find there was this notion that those of us who come from the mountain, we had dominated several post-independence governments to the exclusion of the smaller ethnic groups. But now with devolution, the people of Northeastern, they are now in government everywhere.
Was it a notion or was it the case?
Probably yes. There's a good case that can be made on that point. Maybe those who preceded us in leadership at the national level did not do a good job in forging a Kenyan identity. So we remained highly ethnicized, and therefore we remained a country with several nations as opposed to one country, one nation. Yeah. So devolution, to a certain extent, it made everyone feel at least now we have something we can push and we feel represented as being part of Kenya.
So, Governor, we talk about devolution, and one would look at how devolution then gets to work. So here's a question where we talk about the funds that are supposed to be released by the national government to the counties, and most of the time always delays. And one would ask, how has that affected delivery of at the counties due to delays in disbursement of funds as ought to have happened?
It means delayed salaries. There are some counties that pay salaries after 2, 3, 4 months. Yeah, it also means delayed implementation of projects. If you are to build a classroom today, you'll build it after for 3 months. It means delayment in payment of suppliers and contractors. If you were to pay them today, then it means you'll pay them after 4 months. So it is very negative.
So is it working? If a decentralized system of government is what was brought about by devolution, and now we're looking at these issues, non-payment of the equitable share that was supposed to come out, takes forever for that to come out, you're sending billions to the counties a month towards the closure of the financial year, and then you fault the counties later for poor absorption of funds, ECDs at the county level, sometimes you can't get money for that. SHA also practice at the counties owing KEMSA for drugs. These things were supposed to be taken care of by devolution, decentralizing government, but more importantly, decentralizing money. But it doesn't seem to be working. So if 1 + 1 is 2, does devolution work?
When you have a baby, you don't expect the baby to be born today and to start walking tomorrow.
No, but at 14, they should have been.
Yeah, but be that as it may, it's a journey. Yeah, you're not born today and you start eating githeri. You have to wean. You have to be breastfed exclusively for 6 months. So it's a process to grow up. So therefore, yes, it is true, there are problems, but we cannot throw the baby with the bath water. So we have to continue making devolution work better.
Yeah.
And we look history as a chain of events, not a singular event.
Okay. Dennis Okari has a couple of questions, but I'm going to segue into what his questions will be. One of the things has been that with devolution, we saw the decentralization and entrenchment of corruption. That it was taken then from the national level, and it was then now practiced properly at the county level. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's true, and but I have said that the problem of corruption is both at the national level, it's also at the county level.
Oh, they didn't let go of it completely at the national level. They just, handed over some of the reins to the counties.
Yeah, definitely, it's a problem that that might take time for us to really address. And we have to wait and see how things pan out as history unfolds. But we must continue looking for ways to remedy it. And for me, one main attempt is to automate and to digitalize. What you saw in Homa Bay was what the county of Muranga has attempted to do, which is to automate county services. We used to have own source revenue on average 500 million per annum prior to automation. After automation, the first year it went to 650 million. The second year it went to 1.1 billion. Then last financial year, as at 30th of June 2025, we closed as to 1.3 billion Kenya shilling. So I believe strongly that automation cuts corruption and inefficiency to a greater extent.
Now, Governor, I have a direct question before I get to the crust of the matter. Is Muranga County using a manual payroll system, or it's there's a system?
95% digital, but there's a small 2% that is manual.
Why is 2% manual?
What happens? If you if you do an employment today, you will not onboard that person immediately. It takes time to be digitalized. So between the time you have employed X and to put that person into digital system, it can take 3-4 months or thereabout. Why? Because that system, we call it IPPD, is not owned by the counties. It is a national government system. So by the time now you give them their documents, they start to map you into the system, it takes a little bit of time. Yeah, but barring those new recruitments, we have almost done 98% digital.
So, according to the Public Financial Management Reforms Secretariat, which is based in the National Treasury, there's a huge problem in Kenya. And this, in today's dailies, you see it across, that there is a channel that has been used as an avenue for stealing. Now, the problem of ghost workers on payroll has become what they're referring, and I quote them, a pandemic for many counties. Billions of taxpayer money is pumped out annually from the government to pay non-existent employees who have been fraudulently placed on the payroll systems of most county governments. The Secretariat says, this is a report, you have the Auditor General who has actually pointed out and listed quite a number of counties where there are cases of employees who are not in any system. Either of these two things. One, they're actually earning two salaries from two government entities, which is, again, against the Constitution. Or two, they actually don't exist. They are ghost workers. So, in essence, then this will mean they're either not in that system or manually they do not exist, but the salary going to somebody's account. In your experience as governor, I don't know the Murang'a case, whether there were any ghost workers when you took over. Were there any? I'm sure, like any other person, you're taking over the reins of account. You want to do an audit, a self-audit. Did you ever find ghost workers?
Yes, we did an audit that disclosed about 50 employees could not be physically traced.
What does this thing mean? Because I've seen in the reports, there are counties where the Auditor General says, and there are several examples. An example is Vihiga County Public Service Board was showing about 420. I know this is not your county. I'm just using this as an example to just extrapolate this so that we can get to understand how does this work. 426 employees could not be traced in one county. 426. This is just one. In another county, it was 1,900. Which one was this? I was looking. One in Kericho County, the Auditor General, Nancy Gadongo, flagged the possibility of ghost workers since 1,955 employees had not been allocated personal numbers. The people do not exist. So when you say they could not be traced, these are just names of people with phone numbers, ID numbers, KRAP numbers, or how do those names appear in the county payroll and they can't be traced?
Okay, let me talk of the 50 that I found in Murang'a,
yes,
and also talk about these numbers.
Yes.
Because there's a story that is not revealed by that report.
Okay.
One, the 50 could have been people who have died, but as at the time you are collecting data, there was no one had reported. You see, when you die today, by the time HR knows you have died, unless HR was following you at a personal level, there might be a time lag. If that happens in the private sector, you'd imagine in the public sector it may be a little bit more. That's one. Two, there are people who may be sick as at the time you are doing the counting, and of course, truly, there are people who might have gone, but they never reported their resignation. So you must understand that context.
Sorry, Governor, I just must have some clarification here. If an individual, an employee, does not show up at work on a Monday, would the county government be aware that this person did not come to work for whatever reason and not ask, why were you absent from duty without leave? Would they know?
Yes, they ought to know, but definitely the systems of knowing that they are not robust. Definitely.
Okay,
that's
so I could at the county
That's
level.
a possibility.
So at the county level, I could get away 4 or 5 days not showing up at work, and the system would not pick it up. They wouldn't know.
Not everyone. I'm not saying everyone.
Okay.
I'm just saying the systems are not as robust as they ought to be.
You understand?
Because,
I'm trying to understand why an individual would die. This is not even sickness. This is not on leave because they took a vacation. An individual would die, pass away, no longer live. And this is not just one cycle. This is up to, and as an example that's being given, This is up to 8 payment cycles. That individual is dead, supposedly, and they're still drawing posthumously a salary. So that's why I'm asking, how would somebody not show up at work 2 to 3 days and the human resource system is unaware that they were not there? Talk less of death. Somebody, there would be chatter in the office. Ndu's no longer with us. She passed on. There would be a fundraising. There would be something. Somebody would attend a funeral. And that would kick in the process whereby they say, okay, obviously, this person is no longer here. We even chartered a bus to go to their village for the funeral, as often happens in public offices.
Yes, of course. Okay.
This happens. So how would they not follow the other due processes of removing this person's information from the system?
What happens? There has to be a supervisor. That supervisor has to report to another supervisor, who will then escalate that to the HR every month.
Surely it's a 5-minute conversation.
Every month, there are returns that the HR department picks from various departments as to the people who are working, as to the people who are not working. Yeah. And definitely, if I say that system is robust, I'll be lying. So you can easily get into that, where 1 or 2 people are not being picked up by the system. And that is why I strongly believe the best way to handle that is to create a digital platform that tracks what happens in each place. And most counties are yet to reach that level, but I know some counties are doing their best towards creating a digital footprints of its employees. This other one, which is in the document here, the 1,900, it is a case of what we call cashew employees. Yeah. Cashew employees are not those who are usually paid under manual system. Even in Murang'a, I found 1,300 people who used to be paid casually. They used to be paid under manual system.
Oh, casually. I thought you were saying cashew, like the nuts, and I was going to ask.
Casual. Okay,
sorry. Yeah. I thought, okay, sorry, Governor, please. All right.
Yeah. So cashew employees, they did not have a letter of appointment, they did not have a contract, they were not there's a government systems that grades employees. You're in this grade, you're in this grade, you're in this grade. So they were not put into that system. It is domiciled here, the national government. So in short, most counties has that problem. So what the Murang'a County did was first to input them into that system, which we call it IPPD. So when the auditor went out there, she found in some counties 1,900 people who are being paid manually.
Now, here is where the problem lies. Majority of these are not able to be traced. My question then would be, if there is a percentage that is whose details are in a system, so when the payroll is coming out, you can clearly tell who this person is, the KRA PIN number, and all the personal details. Then you have another segment, like you're saying, they may not necessarily feature in a grading system within the government, so they are hired casually and they are paid through a manual payroll system. Is there a way of verifying, for example, in the case that you found, you have over 1,000 people. This is a list of people who are actually doing some work for the county and they're receiving money. Is there a way of knowing whether they're actually real people, or is it a question where I can say, sorry to use your name, Irungu Kang'ata will be paid, let's say, 20,000 for maybe sweeping the bus stage or something. Then you have Dennis Asseto, you have this. How are you able to authenticate that these are actually real people and this is money that is being paid to real people who render the real services?
Allow me not to speak on behalf of other counties. You see, Murang'a is not in that list. So I may not be able to really speak on their behalf. So
let's speak about the case of Murang'a. So you have 1,000 people.
So for Murang'a, I think, as I have said, everyone who transited into the digital payroll of the which is here in Nairobi, the IPPD system. So we no longer have that problem. It used to be there, but we no longer have that problem. Everyone was given a contract of 5 years, those who are under casual employment. And that's it. The other program is for internship, which is basically internships.
Yeah. So, Governor, you look at the collaboration between the national and county governments with regard to ensuring that the counties get work. So it's a question of let's talk about the ghost hospitals that we continue to witness here, and ghost schools and whatnot. And here is a question where all these schools and hospitals are domiciled in these counties, and one would imagine that since money is disbursed from the national government that would then be used at the counties, that these reports would come up. And conversation is out here saying that both individuals at the national and county governments are working together to fleece the public. Is that the case? And if that's not the case, how are you handling it in Murang'a County in ensuring that hospitals, schools are what are registered and not ghost hospitals, ghost schools?
Okay, this issue of registration of hospitals, insofar as payment is concerned, is a national government function. It's a SHA issue, isn't it? And we don't come in. It is them who go do the audit. As we give them the list they want, they onboard private hospitals. And
so there is no point where if there is a hospital A in Murang'a County that is being flagged to be ghost, there is no way that the county would come in to flag that and say this hospital does not belong in my county as stated in the register.
Upon a request, will definitely help. Yeah, upon either by the public or by the national government, we'll definitely be able to flag this as a ghost. Yeah.
So corruption would, say, be happening in your county and the county would not care?
You will definitely care. But, if another entity decides to be corrupt, what do we do? It is them. It is them. It's like traffic police who are taking bribes in a county. But they are national government employees. How would you know? And what power would you have to superintend national government officials within their practice of their role? Yeah, same with the schools. Schools are also national government entities. To what extent? We have no way to superintend the primary and secondary school. So that's their role. Yeah.
Do you think it is too big a problem, this corruption that we talk about at the county level, countrywide?
Yeah, it is. Whether at the national level, at the county level, it is a major problem.
How would you weed it out? What would you think needs to be the panacea to these issues?
I think there are several interventions that Kenyan society needs to do. Several. And one, we start with the criminal enforcement entities. They need to prosecute people, take action. That's one. Two, there's a role of automation and digitization, because you need to reduce incidences where people and officials interact. The more they interact, the higher the propensity for corruption. The less they interact, the less the propensity for corruption. So digitization helps. Number three, I also think there's a role of society, particularly how we practice our politics. I say so because there seems to be like a rush for politicians to look for money, to be re-elected, and that then creates a society where there's a lot of incentives for people to do misdeeds. And whenever a common mwananchi takes money from a politician, often than not, that is money that has trickled out of public coffers. And therefore, if we were to have a mindset where we make our politics less expensive, where the population also doesn't demand lots of money from politicians, I definitely see a situation where that issue is remedied. Yeah. And of course, it will not be eliminated, but definitely remedied. And it will create a society where people can get into leadership without the necessity of having money.
Who would push for this criminal investigation and prosecution? Who would be the one that would push for that?
Of course, the established prosecutorial agencies. Yeah.
So, the Auditor General gives a report, as she often does, and we've seen the last one, where counties are brought into question over and over again. What would be the next step? You've sat in a senator position. You served as a senator previously, where the oversight came right under your belt, and these reports would also make their way to the Senate floor, right? Such reports also visited you then. In that moment, what would be the recommendation? Or is it a read the reports and it collects dust as it has for the longest time?
Of course, there are prosecutorial agencies that needs to take Senate recommendations seriously and prosecutions done. But I really strongly believe that society has a role. I've been in this game for long, and I know the kind of incentives politicians have. And once those incentives, if they are not remedied, I think we will be just going into a circular game. I know, for instance, we all know, let's say, a credible presidential candidate, the kind of money he or she needs to amass. And I don't know why then we would expect them to have such large sums of money. And then we don't ask ourselves, where did they accumulate that money from? Unless Kenyans become a little bit revolutionary. Revolutionary means they elect a leader without putting money as a premium. Definitely, then this problem might still be there.
So it seems like if we were to peel this conversation like how you'll peel an onion. We've just started peeling this slowly. So you've said what has happened. We have a society problem, and I think we all agree there's an issue. The corruption has gone to the deepest trenches, and here's a situation, for example, where then the politician is expected to dish out money because, like you said, there's a frenzy at the moment to get as much money, accumulate as much money ahead of the election. And we all live in this country, and the reality is this country is, we know whoever wants to run for any seat, you need money to run. Now, what about a situation where it's then politicians who are actually then receiving the money? And in this case, I want to refer to a meeting that happened in State House, and there are conversations around certain groups of people that were paid money to attend meetings. And these monies, obviously, for lack of a better word, to get to buy these people. You know who I'm referring to, Governor. And so the question then is, if it's a society problem, and seems like there is an expectation from the public to get money. For example, if you're running, the expectation is, Governor, tuachie kakitu. That is the expectation then from the public. But then when it is Governor, who is also now called into a meeting room, and then pia na wewe unapatiwa bahasha, what is it saying about our politics, and in reference to the meeting I've just mentioned?
I will only use generic words and refer to two elections, which I don't know whether do you blame politicians for failing to give a better how do I say, menu of political choices? Or do you blame the people? I don't know, who do you blame? Because there's also that element that you have to give credible choices for people not to go that direction. I say so because in 2002, I think that was a fairly revolutionary election.
How so?
One Kenyans united beyond tribes. That was one. Two, I saw an election where money was very de-emphasized. In fact, it was society giving money to politicians, not politicians giving money. Yeah, it was a change election. And indeed, when that government came into power, 2002, 2007, we had an economic boom. Kenya has never grown faster economically than those 5 years. We were growing at a rate of 7% per annum GDP. And if you recall, our revenues used to be 200 billion per annum tax collection. I think that amount it crossed the 1 trillion, I think, by the end when Mzee Kibaki was exiting.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to argue that Jesus had a point when he said, you cannot plant maize and you expect to reap beans.
Right.
So when we create a political situation where corruption starts during electioneering, then it goes without saying, we will reap bad leadership.
Do you think it's possible to run an election in Kenya or to campaign at the moment without the rampant handouts that we know happen, or that even in a run-up to elections, for example, what we see happening today, whereby people are wooed to certain areas or wooed in certain areas with monetary figures? We are being told it's empowerment, we're being told it's, whatever the case may be. But do you think it's possible to run an electoral campaign in Kenya today without the monetary, I don't even know if to call it gifting or rewarding, that we are seeing already happening right now?
Yes, it's possible.
How?
Well, it's possible. I've seen it in several other positions. Yeah, I've seen it. I know it. Where people are in a revolutionary mood and they don't take anything from you. They want to send a certain political statement. So it happens. I've seen even in other jurisdictions, even for other poorer nations, where people, they just want good leadership. That can happen, and it ought to happen.
What is it going to take for that to happen in Kenya? We're in 2025. There are governors who already know that they want to either be governors in the next term, or those who know that their second term is already on the out and maybe they want to be in another position of politics. We find the alignment has already begun. Today we find billions of shillings already going out to people in different parts of the country, which is going to already create the face for what the political temperature will be coming into 2027. And it has permeated every single crevice in the country so far. What do you think it would take in Kenya for that not to be the case, where when you see a politician, you think, okay, what are they going to give me in order for me to even hear them, talk less of vote for them?
You, the media, you have a role. Because you shape narratives. Yeah? You educate the public. So if you are to nudge people into policies, if you are to nudge people into ideas, we will definitely be a better country. Just pick any headline randomly and you see how personalized our politics is. It's about X, it's about Y, an individual. It is never about a policy position. What is the policy position of, let's say, UDA or even President Ruto on education or, let's say, housing? You see? What is the policy position of the DCP or even DP? Or even Wiper, or even whatever party, about do they believe in privatization of state enterprises, or they do not believe. So if our politics could now turn less personal and more issues, and I see a role in the media towards that shift, we would have a better country. Because currently no one knows the manifestos of various governments. We do not know. And if you were to know, then I can tell you this country would be miles ahead.
But Governor, one would say that with everything that is happening in the country, let's take, for instance, the current government. The manifesto is there, the bitter agenda that they used to get into power. And you look at what was promised vis-a-vis what is happening, and there is a direct shift. And you look at the role of politics in fighting corruption, and one would look at it and say, the media will highlight, will give the agenda and policies, but if the political class is not willing to change, because I remember as we were getting into the 2022 elections, there was talk on campaign financing, but the people who actually fought that were the political class themselves. So then as the media pushes the conversation on anti-corruption and changing the society, how about the political class that is not willing to play ball in it? So what role then does the political class itself play in ensuring that these conversations on policies do not get lost?
No, that's okay. If they breach their commitments, you highlight that so that they get kicked out after 5 years. Yeah, they broke promises, if that is the case. So for that is the easier part. For me, the hard part is various people who want to become the president. Do we know their manifesto? Do you know their platforms? Do we highlight their platforms? Okay, even let me just give even an example for governors. Do you know there are counties where children go to school for free in high school? Where every person they have been able to achieve, they pay all school fees for their children. Do you highlight that? Yeah, do you highlight that? Do they ever get an opportunity to come and tell their story? Mandera County. Yeah, Mandera County pays for every child's high school education. So do they ever get an opportunity to say how they have done it? Or do we then devote all our time to highlighting issues of that is empowerment program of the UDA government, the controversies of let's see, the drama in the opposition? Is it Matiang'i? Is it Kalonzo? You see? So you have a situation where leaders who propagate policies like that example I've given of Mandera, free secondary school education, they don't get the opportunity to tell their story. And even if and that is deemed as if it is not a story worth telling. But the coalition building, the politics of what, that becomes the real story. And therefore we continue entrenching politics of personalities, rather politics of issues. And that then means even if you get politician X out of power, you bring politician Y, Kenya will not move an inch forward, which is wrong.
Okay. What do you see as the outlook as we're looking into the next couple of years? And again, we've just come off of a place where devolution as a system of managing a nation has stepped into its 14th year, and that under a new constitution with its promulgation taking place in 2010, where does constitutionalism come in here, and where are we going into the future? Do you feel that the constitution has been upheld when it comes to how the country has been managed?
Yes and no.
Okay, let's start with the yes.
Of course, we do have strong courts. They have rendered landmark judgments, like the decision to overturn the election win of President Uhuru in 2017. That was a major constitutional moment. The decision to stop BBI and several other judgments. They have made judiciary to get a reputation of being robust. Of course, not every judgment personally I've agreed with them. I know they have also stalled development in several instances. But be that as it may, that shows robustness of our constitutional order. Devolution, notwithstanding the problems that we continue having, it is working. I know of counties that have done a great job, and we need to congratulate those counties. Of course, despite the various problems. Some counties have renovated ECDs. They have built more dispensaries, more hospitals. They have paved roads. So we have misses here and there and hits. As to the negative is we still continue to practice our politics based on ethnicity. We don't have a national agenda. And when you look at the Constitution, it envisaged a one united Kenya. And therefore, for me, that's the greatest miss of this Constitution.
Governor, if you look at the current dispensation, and I would segue into what is happening in the country today in terms of the empowerment projects that are happening. It is said that fine, we are having this empowerment that is taking place, where the money is coming from is not known, and that is said to be corruption being pushed. And you look at what is happening, and one asks the question, as a country, I want you to just speak not as the governor, as a country and a government, is fighting corruption our priority as we speak?
I can only say it ought to. It ought to be a priority.
Is it though?
Is it though?
It ought to, as to though maybe that definitely not. You see a lot of problems in the country.
I think governor is avoiding politics.
No, I definitely I don't want
from
politics.
Your answers. Let's. But my last question. This is generally around politics. We can't fail not to have a political conversation as much as we're having an economic one, because the politics then will affect the economics, and the economics will obviously affect the politics. Let's look at an issue here, and we've been hearing about this issue for the longest time, and we are inching closer to by-elections, and by extension, the general election, and it almost feels like we are seeing a creation of different alliances ahead of the by-elections, which is almost like a show of force of what then will happen in the general election. And I'm looking at numbers, IBC numbers here from Central Kenya, because you're from Central. And I'm looking at 2022 figures. Kiambu was leading with 1.27 million registered voters. Then Meru follows with 772. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. The third one is Murang'a. Your county has the third largest voting bloc from Central Kenya, which is around 620,000 thereabouts. Around 620,000. Where are you seeing the next shift? Because we have been told that the voting bloc from that region is very crucial for any one of these groups that wants to then win the general election. Let's talk politics. From your perspective, you're from Murang'a, where are you seeing, what do you see happening, or what are you hearing from the ground happening? Is there a sense that there is a common ground, or is there a conversation around splits? Because we keep hearing the Kiambu may end up splitting from the rest, and the politicians are saying, I think it's time we split from the others, and the others are saying, you can't come with that conversation right now. Where are we? Just your perspectives.
Okay, it's good for a person to admit deficiencies. I'm the most unqualified person to answer that question because I have not put my mind on politics for the last 3 years. I think the mistake was mine. When I was seeking the position of a governor, I forgot to ask for a mandate to practice politics. The mandate I sought from Murang'a people was on certain specific economic issues of healthcare. What do we do about access to hospitals? That's why we came up with that card. We gave them to the poor households. What do we do about education? ECD. That's why we gave little children free meal, and we renovated their ECD classes. What do we do about agriculture? That's why we gave them free certified maize and fertilizer to boost food security. But when I was a senator, most likely I would have been very qualified to answer that, or a member of parliament. But I'm so sorry. I didn't seek that electoral mandate of practicing politics, so I rarely discuss politics. And I can only see that once in a blue moon I will hear some rumors there, and I suspect that the region will remain united. Definitely, that one I know. It will also the turnout might be very huge. And that's it.
Governor, one would ask, remain united in UDA or DCP?
You see, now that's politics again.
Governor is saying,
The mountain will remain united.
Yes, definitely.
And
that
will
one.
turn up in large numbers.
That one, be assured that.
but I'm sure next year
the region,
there's a period
the region
next year
will be united,
where you invite
and
governor.
it will turn out in very large numbers.
Perhaps there will be a
buoyed. That one I can hear them talking. And the idea of, like now when you talk of Kiambu is 50% Murang'a. In fact, it is 90% Murang'a, Kiambu. Why? The people who live in Kiambu came to Kiambu in 1910s, and they were from Murang'a, all of them. The people you see in Gatundu, you see in Limuru, they are originally from Murang'a. If you ask them, they can trace their Murang'a ancestry. Very closely. And but even the current generation of Kiambuans, if you go to a place like Vika or Ruiru or Juja, 70% is Murang'a people. So when you talk of a person like Alice, MP Vika, she's from Kandara. Who else? So basically, you can't really talk of
Kiambu without talking about Murang'a.
You can't talk of Kiambu without talking of Murang'a. So the idea I'm trying to bring is that we are conjoined. We are tied to the hip.
And and that is how we know that the governor from Murang'a County, Irungu Kang'ata, talks politics even when he doesn't. Thank you so much for being here this morning, Governor. We appreciate the conversation. Looking forward to talking with you again in the future. Like Okari said, maybe next year, around this time, conversation might shift. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room the only way to start your day.